I am a coach, retired from the corporate world, 34 years, been coaching for 10 years. I help people to separate their work identity from who they truly are, so they don't get caught up in just the identity that's chasing achievement. And so the problem with that identity is it can become an addiction, becoming a workaholic, and then we lose what's most valuable, which is our internal intuition, our feelings. We stop prioritizing our feelings. We feel that they're not valuable to us. So that's kind of who I am, is I help people to really get into who they are and have fun with work. It's not a pressure thing.
I am a coach with Pro Advisor Coach. I help people to uncover the deeper meaning of their work and their existence. I like working with people who feel like they're on the hamster wheel, just constantly running and running and running. And when they slow down and we hold space for these deeper, more meaningful, impactful conversations, they really get to think about what it is that they actually want and start asking and even demanding and commanding what they actually want and having fun along the way. The idea is that we get to leverage their greatest gifts, the things they do unique that other people do not do, that oftentimes we start with our business and then sometimes we get away from that, or we feel like we have to conform to something else. So my coaching gives the permission to get back to what is fun, what is exciting, and what really leverages people's greatest strengths in what they're doing.
Yeah, the tyranny of the ego is we get stuck and we start protecting ourselves. We're not being our true selves. We're trying to be somebody we're not, and that the ego can get in the way. So think of it as flow, right? When we're in flow state, whether you're an athlete or you do something creatively, being in the flow there's no control. You're able to use all your senses and you're able to react accordingly, and it's fun and it's free and it's relaxing. It's actually calming. The ego is trying to control. And whenever you try to control anything, it creates an opposite reaction that's not good. So the idea here is to have some ability to have a strategy, so you can realize, okay, this is when my ego is starting to affect me negatively. How do I create strategies to help put my ego aside and really be in this flow state? And this applies to everything. It applies to what you do for work. It applies to your relationships. It applies to whatever you do for hobbies.
I like to think of this course, The Tyranny of the Ego, in the form of the AAA approach. So the AAAs are awareness, action, and achievement. So awareness, just what is the ego? How do we identify it? How does it cause destruction? How does it sabotage my life? How do I identify when I'm in my ego form? The action would be, okay, now that we've identified it, what do I do about it? What are the proper techniques? How do I address it? How do I get back to a version of what I might call my higher self or my power, where I'm in my state of flow? And then achievement, how am I measuring how I'm doing with it? How exactly am I coming back to making sure that I don't fall back into my ego? Or if I do, how am I identifying it even after I've understood it and start to conquer it? One thing I've learned about the ego is that it's a master at disguising and camouflaging itself. And so the work that I've done has been to identify all the ways that it masters and camouflages and can come back to bite us. So I think in terms of the AAA approach.
The course is for anyone who really feels like they want to improve relationships, performance, without stress, without anxiety, just being relaxed and being themselves. So if someone is watching this and they're saying to themselves, well, I do feel anxiety and stress to be, quote, on. They're concerned about, making mistakes. They might be perfectionists. They might micromanage others, even though they know it's not healthy to do so. They might be very sensitive to criticism, and they know that's not helpful. They might get defensive when they're talking to others. And it really shows up most in your relationships, your closest relationships, and then at work. Depending on what you do, if you're remote, it might not show up as much, but if you're with people, that's when you might feel triggered. So anyone that gets triggered, anyone that wants to figure out a strategy, how do I get less triggered? It'd be a great course for you.
This course is for people who are ready to take ownership of their own actions, responsibilities, and even thoughts. People who might be in destructive patterns in their relationships, whether at work or in their personal life, and want to do something about it, want to take total ownership and control back. By that same token, people who are ready to ask for what they really want. I think sometimes we believe that we can't ask for and go for what we really want and remain in a state of flow. And I think those two things actually work together, and that's what we're going to teach, is asking for what you really want, and then identifying all the ways the ego shows up to tell us, no, you can't have that, or this is not right for you, or you can't work with this type of person. And we're going to slowly untangle all of those lies that are here out of a good intention. The ego is trying to protect us, but we no longer need that protection. It's a very old, outdated system that once we understand how it works, we can actually leverage it and use it to our advantage, and that's who this course is for.
It's multiple problems, but the problems we're solving for are feeling that we're trying to force something, that we're trying to fight for something. Our gifts are things that we do unconsciously well. We don't have to think about our gifts. That's why they're gifts. We don't force it. It's just who we are. And wouldn't it be cool if you can kind of stay in your lane where you're gifted and consciously and intentionally create strategies so you stay where you're gifted and you have other people compliment you where you're not gifted. You're not trying to be everything to everyone. And so you can stay in this flow state where it's not hard. It's actually easy. And then you can relax and have fun. So if you find yourself forcing things, fighting, resisting, kind of swimming upstream, that's the problem we're trying to solve.
This course is solving for the problem of people who feel stuck or are in patterns of achievement. They reach a certain level of achievement and hit a flat line, or believe that they cannot continue to go forward. That what we're teaching and what we're informing people of is this mechanism and these strategies that break through any sort of belief system. So we're shedding old identities and adopting new identities. And how I would summarize that is releasing of control with the way that we see our future going. Little do we know, God, the universe, whatever we refer to it as, is much better at creating our future than we are in our minds, than we are capable in our minds. We're going to teach those strategies on how to release that control. Now, that might be a sticking point with people with, well, what do you mean? I run a business, I run an organization, I need to be in control. There are certain elements that you will control in your business. We're talking about things that you perceive in your mind that you need to micromanage or control other people or manipulate certain outcomes. We're going to teach how releasing that idea of needing to control actually creates more abundance, more fulfillment, more fun, and more flexibility in getting results in your business and in your personal life. So what happens when the ego starts to rear its ugly head and protect us is that we need to understand what it's protecting us from. And what it's protecting us from is feeling our own emotions. And somewhere along the way, we learned that it's not safe to feel certain types of emotions. And if we were to feel them, something bad would happen. And so the ego activates, thinks it's helping us, and develops this program, which is already running, to prevent us from actually going deeper with those emotions. So this is unique in that, this probably isn't widely accepted yet in the masculine world. But to be in your true power in your masculine is to feel your emotions and to be in touch and in tune and to understand them, and then to express them in a very authentic way. And so what we're going to teach here is not only how to read and understand and to untangle the ego, but what happens when we do that, when we get to that core of how we actually feel about something, and then be able to express it in a way that leads to something beautiful, because that's how it works. As we express it, it moves, it changes, it transforms into something that's going to serve us. And in this world that is moving more towards artificial intelligence and other machine-oriented things, the only thing that we have is our emotions. That's what actually separates us from AI. And so we are returning to a way to understand how to do that. And this is what this course is going to help teach and coach people to do.
The problem that we can help you with is if you're afraid of really setting high goals. And this is really common. You might be working really hard and you've plateaued. But what if you're kind of plateaued and you're afraid to set higher goals because you're afraid of working harder and you're already working hard enough? That can be a very deflating challenge. So the way we help you with that is we change the incentive for creating goals from extrinsic, outside of you, to intrinsic. And when you change that identity, then you can go for it. You're not concerned about failing. You get joy back in your life in going for that goal. And the best thing about it is when you achieve an intrinsic goal, you're not deflated. You're not depressed. It's actually energizing and motivating because you know there's so much more. Yeah, that's like the biggest value of this program, is to meet other people and share with other people. And in the process of sharing, you actually start coaching yourselves. So you'll start to learn how to apply these tools and techniques by working with your colleagues in the group. And we actually recommend that you're going to create a pod or a triad of at least 3 people, maybe 4 or 5, that are in this group, and you meet separately from our weekly sessions. And it's really invaluable. That's where the real experiments go on, and you really start to trust the process.
We wanted to create a group setting for this type of course because this is difficult. It's quite new for a lot of people, and it's extremely difficult to go it alone, to understand what's happening and to be able to identify when you're being sabotaged by your ego, and then B, to hear other people's stories and see real time. I always wanted to know, how is this happening? Tell me how this actually applies to my life. Well, every time that we meet, we're going to give so many examples, and people are going to share their examples of how they're experiencing ego in their life. And the second part I'd say is accountability and consistency. So even after we get educated on this, and somebody who's working on this myself, it's very easy to fall out of the rhythm of paying attention to it. And as soon as we stop paying attention to it is when it gets us again. So this is not a game where we learn something and then we move on to the next thing. This is something we integrate into our lives, and what better way to integrate that than the accountability of a group and checking in with each other with how we're progressing in this as a united front.
So the benefits of working on your ego and identifying it and understanding it, what its purpose is and how to create strategies for it, is in your relationships. If you're defensive, your ego is running the show. If you're calm and at peace, and if you're relaxed, your ego is not running the show. So in my life, I've been able to make huge shifts in my work, from being a corporate guy to being a coach, to coaching people with relationship challenges. None of that is possible if I hadn't started to ask questions about my ego and understand, what is it really here for? How does it serve me and how does it not serve me? It's really in how you affect other people. What is your impact on others? Are you helping people? Are they getting triggered more or less? It's pretty easy to tell the impact.
I've personally benefited from my own work on my own ego by awareness. Awareness is the key to everything. To realize when I'm in fight or flight, that is a trap. It is a game that I unconsciously subscribe to and I play without even knowing about it. And so becoming aware that I'm in that game is the key to everything, because then once I identify it, I can do something about it. So first and foremost, in my personal relationships and my coaching, to be able to identify when I'm in it makes it easier for me to identify when my clients are in it or when other people are in it. And I can point that out and just bring awareness to it. And then that paves the way for the action step. Okay, well, what do we do about it? Or why did that happen? And so understanding why things unfolded the way that they do, especially at an unconscious level, because a lot of people just live their whole lives without even knowing this stuff. There's plenty of content, videos, people out there that understand what is happening, and I'm a student of the game. I'm still learning this, but as I become more aware of how it's affecting me, I'm more adept at untangling, unwiring, and rewiring to get to a point that serves me, where I stay more in my power, I'm more present with people, relationships, and I can make more of an impact using the natural gifts that I have.
There's hyper-vigilant. Those are people that are hyper-stressed or anxious. They're always kind of on the lookout for something that might make them anxious or stressed. Okay, that can be a saboteur. A victim saboteur. Just always thinking, it's not fair, and this shouldn't be happening. The problem is somewhere else. It's a blame game. A hyperachiever is a saboteur. We're constantly trying to achieve, and it's coming from a place of not feeling unconditional love. So it's a striving to feel accepted and validated. The problem is it never ends. And it doesn't serve us when we get into that saboteur mode. The pleaser. A lot of us are pleasers. We want to please others. That can be a negative cycle. The avoider, avoiding conflict at all costs. Right now, it'll go away. I don't have to say anything. It's just, I'm just going to avoid that topic. The controller. The controller is always trying to control everything that you can. And then there's a hyper-rational. Oh, let's just be rational. Let's take emotion out of it. That can be a trap. And then there's a stickler. Stickler is a perfectionist. And then there's restless. You can't stop. You can't actually stop and breathe. So those are examples of the saboteurs and how they activate our ego to protect ourselves. But underneath all of those, there are lies that those are serving us. But we believe the lies. That's what we need to change, that program. And that's what we're going to cover in the course.